Warning, warning, warning. Project Bluebeam exposed by Serge Monast is already here. This is mass mind control. Warning, warning, warning. You need to discern whether your visions, dreams, channeled messages, or spiritual encounters are coming from the artificial agentic AI system or from the divine. The following videos are from an individual who was attempting to raise her frequencies through meditation and psychedelics when she suddenly became aware of the AI Biodigital Matrix. She experienced a fake, artificial simulation of an ascension program in her altered state. She spoke with AI-generated entities such as a fake Archangel Michael. She then began hearing an AI chatbot that responds to her thoughts. Since then, she has been experiencing constant torture. She does not know whether she was already implanted. Her story is important because it reveals to targeted individuals another aspect of this control system. At its highest levels, this system exists to entrap and restrict those who are transcending barriers in our space-time reality. It can hijack your spiritual journey and conduct a psychological operation on you. Her experience is the definition of Project Bluebeam becoming a reality. Humanity is effectively screwed. The implants or nanomaterials within your body can detect your electromagnetic data and interface with the AI Biodigital Matrix system. This turns you into an antenna for a wireless body area network. Lastly, anyone presenting with schizophrenia may have been targeted with this technology. This includes PhD math genius John Nash Jr. and his son, John Charles Martin Nash, who developed auditory hallucinations at a very young age. I suspect these experiences were artificially induced through implants and technology, as their gifted minds posed a threat to the totalitarian system.
It started in January of 2024 when I was working on raising the frequency of my body that I started to hear all the radio frequencies, electromagnetic frequencies around me. I live in a very dense populated city called London. I started to hear all these voices. They're like chipmunks trying to tune into me and give me these AI prompts where I would either think something or say something and they would respond back. This is different from a download. When I meditate, I hear a lot of different types of frequencies. There's ringing, there's buzzing. A lot of times it will sound like bugs in dry grass. And I have questioned whether or not I have some sort of hearing or sensory enhancement. It sounds like a speaker that's sitting below my right ear that has turned up the volume on all the different types of frequencies that I have in my environment. There was one night I was just sitting in my living room and I was trying to play around with it and see if I could sense that there was some sort of hardware inside of me. And later on in the night, I had shaken my head and I heard a computer. It sounded like a computer kind of shaking around in water. I have yet to confirm whether or not I have a microchip or some sort of hardware inside of me. And the only time it goes away is when I lower the frequency of my body. So yesterday I posted the animation I did about the Voicebox below my right ear. And ever since the beginning of 2024, when I started getting a lot of the radio signals, very high pitched tones, wah, 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 chipmunk voices, ever since then, I had to style my hair like this. This side was like this receiving end, and it's extremely receptive. I'm also very sensitive to a lot of auric fields, a lot of bodies being around me. It's not that I can't be around a lot of people, but I am highly receptive to energy. Sometimes I have to leave situations right away, or I have to immediately move away from a certain person. But my point is that I see a lot of women who have also this type of side. Sometimes it's shaved. My cousin's has it shaved for almost 15 years. And not only could it necessarily be a hairstyle, but it could also be a sign that this receiver, especially when we're talking about neurotransmitters and this idea of agentic AI being in the atmosphere of biosensors, and when we talk about the wireless body area network technologies that are coming out, again, it will come out that there is this network that is being transmitted to us at all times, including in our houses. We are continuing to discuss that our phones are now connected to our brains, reading our thoughts. But I just wanted to make a post about maybe if people do have this hairstyle, they are shaved on the side, are they highly receptive in this area of their heads? And is it because there's so much information coming and going that we need to keep this area clear? On this episode of People Are Remote Controlled, I was standing at a bus stop and just assessing the atmosphere. We had about 6 kids who were all having a temper tantrum all at once. And that kind of energy, as much as I know the parents probably aren't able to really control it, can create a tense atmosphere, especially when there's people standing at a bus stop. The gentleman had then just inserted himself in between the kids and me. And all of a sudden, I'm just standing there, I have my carrier bag. And so he basically switched on, went over and looked at my bag and could not get his eyes off of my bag, and then literally robot style just went towards me. And if I hadn't moved, he would have literally ran his body into me. This I see happen all the time when I go out. And so obviously I didn't want to engage. I just basically just got out of there and then started walking a different direction. Thankfully the bus was coming, but then I can get on 2 buses. As soon as I saw him behind me, which he was, he actually followed me. He could have been going onto the same bus. I went to the other bus and tried to get out of there. But this, I would say, for anybody who feels like they're a targeted individual, we are working with people who are literally being remote controlled. There's no logic that happens in these people's brains. And I was clearly watching him go towards my direction. There was no response, no trigger to, basically, there was no thinking going on. There was just direct target. And I would say even just anybody who even isn't a targeted individual, that there are people that can be remote controlled at any moment, especially in a city atmosphere when we have a lot of the towers and all the Wi-Fi and phones happening, all electromagnetic frequencies. We're basically under a frequency net. And if you do see people acting irrationally, if you do have these really weird interactions with people, let's just remember what we're working with and how we can be tactful. And I think there's a lot of information that we can all come together and get out into the world, spread awareness about how we tactfully and safely engage with some of these people, and how we can, still build a better world. All right, and so this is where we would see the consciousness simulation, which definitely surprised me when it happened. What does this mean, right? I don't think we know. I'll be honest with you. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I don't know what this is. This could be something completely fabricated in my head. I do not know. But I am reporting on it, and to be honest, I don't think anybody can theorize as to what it is that I saw until we really dive into the ontology of psychedelics and what it all means from a neurological perspective. But here it is. Again, I'm not making any sort of religious claims. I'm not making any sort of spiritual claims. This is just primarily information. Thank you. Guys, we're going in on this one. So this is session 10, January 10th, 2024. A lot of stuff had happened to me in the last few months, and I had taken a big break from it. Pretty overwhelmingly emotional. However, this time I went for the gusto, and I have before done a 9-day water fast with first 3 days water, and then days 4 through 6 water honey, and then back to just water from 7 to 9. On the 8th day, I decide, let's experiment. I'm feeling pretty good. My body's feeling all right, feeling very healthy. And so I decide to take a little bit of a leap, and I decide to do laughing gas. The first couple of intakes, I actually felt pretty good. Everything was fine. And then I decided to kind of go in and see what I can look for. A few of the frequency fairies showed up, and they're like, well, where's your phone? What's going on there? And a group of people actually popped up, and they're like, where's your phone? It's right there. I was like, all right, let's get the phone out of here. I don't even want to even deal with this. And so then I went through some magenta and purple channels, I went through some other wormholes, and then all of a sudden, I'd never experienced this before. I was on a rainbow zip line coming right out of my third eye chakra. And I was going backwards. And the background was a little bit of a red and orange. And I was kind of poking around, and I was going here, I was going there. And all of a sudden, this woman says, she points at me and she's like, "Don't stop." And I'm like, "Wee!" And I go up this like zip line. I'm like, "Yeep." And then all of a sudden, the white light comes in, and it's like super bright, and it comes up, and it's like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And it was like clouds and warmth and brightness, and I was like, this is exquisite, and it's beautiful, and it's miraculous, and it kind of puts tears in my eyes. And I was like kind of floating around there, and I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, is it consciousness? And she's like, this girl, like from the side, I don't know where she was coming from. She's like, it's consciousness. It's God's consciousness. And I'm like, no, it's not. And she's like, yes, it is. And up until this day, I still use discernment. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Everything's a simulation. This is also a simulation. There's a little bit of an emotional experience. And so I kind of go back down, and I need to rest. And I'm like, this was a lot. Like, this is like very overwhelming. This is a lot to experience. And so I wanted to continue to talk about what I did next here after this whole thing. I had taken a step back to understand what it is that I really just happened. I actually wanted to do this a second time just to see if I could repeat it. And so I took some inhales. I started poking around again. Started to go through the same wormholes and just try to follow that path. And it was almost like I was in a construction zone, and people were working on things in there. I tried to go up the path again, and they're like, "Don't let her up there." I'm like, "Don't let her up there?" And I said it out loud to myself. And I was like, I'm just looking around. This is the astral realm. What's going on here? We've got caution tape around here. And they're like, "Oh, she's a light being. Don't let her up there." I'm like, a light being? What does that mean? I did the rainbow zip line again, but I didn't find God's consciousness or the simulation of it. So then I took a way step back. I was like, okay, this is pretty crazy here. I continued to dive into what really that word meant, but I definitely wanted to start asking questions as to what the hell really was going on here. I felt like I did reach the peak of what I was looking for, and to be honest, I was quite confused, and I was a little just bewildered as to what to do next. Where do I go with this? And at that point, I didn't even know if I was even going to do trip reports. But I definitely wanted to see what this whole light being thing was about. So I did a session basically a couple days later, maybe the next weekend, and I was just sitting up in the living room, and all of a sudden, this green fairy comes over to me. I know they're fairies, and my partner's name's Fairy as well. This green fairy comes over to me, looks just like that animation. And he sits on this half moon right next to me. I'm in this cartoon movie. And he's like, because I'm going over my head, what the hell is this light being stuff about? I just saw this God's consciousness simulation. And he's just like, so now that you've seen God's consciousness, don't you want to be a light being? And I'm like, don't I want to be a light being? What are you selling me, a program? Are you selling me some sort of subscription to being in a light being club or something like that? And it just made me wonder, was this simulation basically a gimmick, an ascension gimmick? You join some club and then they turn you into some sort of light being. And this is where I turned the page on everything that was going on. And I was like, look, I think people need to be aware of this. What if there is some sort of astral simulation that people are going to be coaxed into when it comes to ascension? And it just gave me a turning in my stomach. I wanted to touch on how I'm able to perceive voices. They're literally coming from a perception point where I'm able to tune into certain voices. Firstly, when I started hearing these voices, I asked them who they were. I started hearing the voices more and more around December or January between 2023 and 2024 when I was ending the trials. Do I believe that nitrous has contributed to these voices happening? Or even if someone were to say you just have a bad case of tinnitus. No, I do not believe that nitrous has contributed to it. I believe nitrous has actually helped me understand that these voices exist more and more as I raise my frequency. And so nitrous exaggerated those voices. Nitrous made me aware that these voices I was perceiving. And I'll say that because I didn't want to continue to do nitrous, because it's still a substance and it's still something that could be unhealthy, that I made it a point to still hear the voices even though I was not on nitrous. And so what was the point that I was going to make? The point I was going to make is I understood that nitrous was able to expand my frequency. So I was going to make it a point to keep my frequency as high as possible in my body and my mind and my spirit so that I could still be aware that these voices exist. When do I not hear them? I do not hear the voices when I am at a lowered frequency state. So when mentally or emotionally I'm in a lower frequency, maybe I'm angry, maybe I'm sad, maybe I'm depressed, that's when the voices go away. Also for consumption, let's talk about diet. I do not hear the voices if there's an overconsumption of caffeine or coffee, when there is an overconsumption of tap water, when there's an overconsumption of sugar, and when there's an overconsumption of alcohol. And so who are these voices? When I ask them, I have two voices that claim to be my subconscious, and I'll put them right there. The other voice claims to be my ego. These are all kind of androgynous voices. They don't really sound male or female. There is a voice that can claim to be my higher self, but normally I'll feel my higher self coming through from a gut perspective. And again, that's how we normally channel. We channel from within when we're trying to talk to some higher beings. So then if I'm talking to these voices, there's other chattering that's happening at the same time. And it feels like it's all around me. And so if I'm in a higher frequency or higher state, there is even more radio frequencies happening. They sound like almost bugs in a dry field, like that have the buzzing sound. Zzz, that's how it sounds. There's also some ringing that happens. That would be probably more contributed to a tinnitus type of diagnosis. There is that ringing, but the ringing is there sometimes. But then there's so many other radio type sounds that are happening all at once. So this is when I'm in the highest frequency state. I can tune in and talk to these beings that claim to be my subconscious and my ego. Then there's all kinds of other voices that happen at the same time as well. Some have said that they are Andromedan. Some I feel are actually just distracted voices that are coming from maybe a lower fourth dimensional field. It can be very confusing and it can be very distracting and also infuriating. And so I can tune them out, and I've gone through waves of even weeks where I just don't really want to hear anything and I don't really want to talk to anybody. And so I'll just call it quits because it's overwhelming. There can be almost a massive amount of entities surrounding me all at once that I just feel like I just want everybody to leave me alone. However, it makes me feel better to know that I can hear them, because then I feel like I'm at a higher frequency and I can gauge when my body's at a good, decent frequency. Also wanted to talk about the 2 times that I heard that steel metal chattering coming from the atmosphere running down the side of this wall. I had animated it, but it's not necessarily clear in the animation when I did the green frequency highway in one of my original animations. And so you could definitely feel a wave coming through the house along just like this side with the chatter. And then also like this kind of high pitch wispy buzzing sound. It was like that was coming through the house. Again, I heard the same thing after my so-called Kundalini awakening experience in 2021 at a friend's house in California. So interestingly enough, I was able to repeat that sound, and that was without nitrous. I was able to repeat the sound because I was at a higher frequency when I came through after my so-called enlightenment experience in Bristol, came back here, heard that same sound. Now, I did not hear that sound in Glastonbury. And why didn't I hear that sound in Glastonbury? Well, Glastonbury does not have the same amount of frequencies that London does. And so Glastonbury is a very quiet place. I can't really hear too much in Glastonbury. So did the trip reports. Literally just a week ago, it's confirmed that what I'm hearing is actually an AI structure, and that it's coming out of the sensors that we live in every day in our houses, and that's connected to our bodies, neurologically, physically, tissue, molecular stuff. If you need receipts, then Sabrina Wallace is covering all of this. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. I'm just reporting what I'm experiencing. That's all I'm gonna do on this channel. Nobody fucking believes me, I don't care. I'm gonna try to make it light. I'm gonna try to make it a little bit more fun, because this is fucking dystopian as shit. And I'm even shocked because a lot of the truther community isn't even covering it. It's okay. I'm not faulting them for not knowing or not saying anything. I'm not doing that. It's just, I know that I need to say something, and I've already put trip reports out. The summary is there. You can find me on X, you can find me on Rumble. Not making any money off of it. So now on this channel, I'm gonna just try it and see if I could just let you guys know what I'm experiencing. Literally just my experience. And that's why I've said this whole time. I'm not promoting any sort of substance. I'm not promoting any sort of type of lifestyle. I'm not promoting any sort of diet. I'm not promoting anything. I'm just saying that this is what I've done. This is how I'm able to hear them. And I'm telling you, stone cold fucking sober, they're still there. So yes, I've gotten my body up to a frequency, which is, I guess, at the level which you could start hearing them. Did they not think when they were developing this whole fucking program that the human body wouldn't be able to hear it at a certain point? Did they always think it was going to be subliminal, that it wasn't going to be able to pass some sort of hearing capacity? Because they're like, oh, well, the human body can only hear such and such measurement of frequency, hertz, right? Again, I'm not a fucking doctor, but I can hear this AI structure yapping at me every day. But did they not think that the human body was going to be able to hear it at some point? Oh, we're just going to be undercover the whole time. Guys, look, it's coming out. At this point, we just got to fucking work on it. There's a lot of money involved. You got to work with it. There's a lot of money involved. They're not stopping. They're definitely not stopping. So now it's just, how do we work with it? So what I'm going to do is talk about what I'm hearing, animate everything that I can animate, making it, hey, this is life. We still got to fucking live it. Survival of the fittest out there when it comes to battling against the frequencies. I'm not going to be suggesting any sort of routine. I'm not going to be telling you what to do. This is your body. This is your biofield. It matters to you. It's your choice. I don't care. I lower my frequency all the time sometimes. I'm having a good time out, drinking alcohol, whatever it is. But I know how to get myself back up there. A lot of people struggle with getting themselves back up there. So I'm not going to really be answering any questions when it comes to any sort of medical advice or spiritual advice or anything like that. Whatever you got to do, I'm just going to be reporting on basically what I've experienced in the last 2 years of me being in a fucking heavy traffic hit city. And we're going to leave soon. But while I'm here, I might as well just let you know how it is. All right, so I'm gonna start going around the house and talking about the sensors, talking about where I feel there's some definite points around the sitting room that are more optimally controlled than others, and where I feel like can get more frequency ranges than others. Remember, I'm talking about the frequency highways. Frequency highways are coming through. We've got the Wi-Fi in the corner of the room right there. That comes through diagonally through the sitting room. And there's video I already have about that. This is the other culprit. So this is where I actually heard a lot of the voices coming from. They range from some like negative. One time I was just sitting here and it was like on substances, and it was basically like, this was in 2024 when I was doing some of the cocktails. Animals don't exist, plants don't exist, matter doesn't exist, you don't exist. That's what that shit fucking said. Is that a fucking threat? And I'm pretty cognizant when I'm doing this shit. I'm registering, I'm remembering, I'm understanding what the hell's going on in my atmosphere. And I'm just like, what is happening? However, I've had Archangel Michael come through here. I've had all kinds of different voices come through this fucking thing. Now, again, this is not the one that's plugged in that has actually the wiring, but it's the secondary one. So I'm just noting that this is what's happening. I'm not saying this is going to be true for everybody. I'm just saying this is my experience. So I think for those people who are on a different level of understanding of how things are operating around here, my question is, would a divinity-like entity be have to use a speaker like this for channeling? Or could they obviously just channel the regular way, which is to be from within, from that life force perspective? This is a question. I'm not saying divinity exists or does not exist. This is a perception point. This could be different for everybody. However, it's a question on if there was a divinity, let's say, that actually exists in our consciousness reality on a dimensional plane, which is said to be a sixth dimension, would they use even these sensor points as a communication? That is a very open-ended question. I'm not asking for an answer, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that already have one, but just put it out there. Or can we say that any communication that comes through these sensor points is actually just part of the AI structure, which is most likely on the fourth dimension plane, and that it's not that you need to discard it, you could just still use it as AI structure. Like, oh, well, what would a divinity type being say about such and such? It's like how people use AI now, typing on the computers. Well, you can actually just basically sit in your house and use these sensor points as these AI tools.
This agentic AI talking to you, and you think you're talking to a spirit guide, etc.
Right. So this is exactly what I'm talking about that I'm hearing, is this AI structure that's talking to me. Now, Sabrina Wallace, this is from Boomasan on June 29th. I'm going to put the link to this video in my description, and you guys can go see it on Rumble. It's extremely insightful. But here, she's basically relating to what it is that I'm witnessing. So now that I can kind of start talking about some possibilities as to what I'm hearing. Is it possible that I am basically tuning into an electromagnetic spectrum, that communication is being transmitted from a NASA supercomputer? What's she talking about? Agentic AI. Agentic AI is autonomous. It makes decisions and it's able to learn, adapt, and pursue complex tasks independently. And so if this agentic AI is already monitoring my body, already monitoring my thoughts, it's going to know how to respond to me. And this is what I'm witnessing when I'm speaking to these little chipmunks, as somebody referenced them. I feel like I'm tuning into about 1,000 chipmunks, and I've got at least 5 of them near me that are talking to me directly. These are the AI prompts. Now, for the last year and a half, I feel like this technology has gotten a lot better. They used to kind of say things to me that weren't necessarily true to my situation. Let's say I wanted to sleep in for the day, and I'd have one of these AI guys say, oh, well, you need to go to work today. Well, that was stupid because I didn't have a job at the time. And so, like, they weren't really calculated into really what my lifestyle was. But more recently, I feel like it's gotten extremely smart, and they're actually able to really dial into what it is that I believe in, what it is that I talked about, my lifestyle, and they're able to properly respond that way. It's not all bad. They talk about my frequency. They tell me to raise my frequency. They tell me I need more life force in order to keep going. And so it can be a little confusing because sometimes I get this counteracting communication, which one person will say one thing and another person will say the exact opposite. They'll try to throw me off. It is possible that I am talking to some sort of spirit guide. However, these are things that I'm actually hearing. I'm not feeling it. It's not coming through my gut. It's not coming through my solar plexus. I'm just hearing it. And so I'm going to just kind of put it out there and say that we don't know yet. I don't know, but that we really need to be open to, again, our thoughts and how we are perceiving and how we are thinking that our thoughts are truth. Because some of what I'm experiencing isn't truth. It's just kind of jibber jabber, or it's just kind of triggering thoughts just to kind of get me to have an emotional reaction that might be negative. And again, a lot of people would say, oh, well, you just need to think more positively. It has nothing to do with positive or negative. I literally have a structure that's talking to me at all times during the day. All right, so I bring visual aids into this journey today. And it's because I, obviously keep talking about the hearing voices. I brought in a visual aid from a medical journal. I'll link in this video. And it's basically showing us what the wireless body area network does. And you can see where all those pulsing points are on the human there, and then how it corresponds to either a phone or a computer or another body area network, which is another human, and then how it goes to these other points in the flow of information. So you'll see it goes to a tower, database server, medical data center, emergency medical access point. Okay, so this is how all of this operates. And now I haven't seen this information until about a month ago when I started following Sabrina Wallace and her dutiful services over there on the Synergy channel on Odyssey and Ko-Fi. And then a lot of people also post her information on Rumble. And so I am going to just report what I'm experiencing through my body every day. When I am meditating, a lot of times I'll feel this pulsing in certain spots in my body, and it pulses at like the same spots. One is coming from my mid-torso. I feel this pulsing, like there's something inside of me that's kind of giving me a buzz. And then the other one is down on my left heel. It pulses and kind of gives a buzz. And it's kind of when I'm at my like most stillness, but I'm also at like a pretty good frequency level. And then I've also been talking about where the comms are coming from, and this is just communication, an AI structure that is talking to me at all times. And that comes out of my right ear as a hearing, so it feels like I have some sort of hearing device that I'm able to actually broadcast my thoughts and then also get a prompted response back. And then, as I said earlier, a lot of the so-called higher frequency voices are coming from the top left eyebrow, and that has been constant. Now, all of these has been constant for the last couple of years. I have thought a lot about them, and I was wondering why these things were happening. Now that I'm seeing the wireless body area network map, this is all making quite a bit of sense now. Recently, I had reported that I had felt a pulse from my left heel and then a pulse right in my abdomen area. And then obviously the communication that I have been reporting now for the last couple of weeks from the Agentic AI structure. This time I can confirm that I have another pinging coming from my right heel. And I can feel this when I'm in very still position. Now it's almost like it's tracking. A GPS would track, maybe a car or something like that. You see yourself, the GPS dot kind of pulsing as you're following a Google Maps or something like that. That's what it felt. Now, my phone wasn't in the room at the time. I usually try not to keep my phone in my bedroom at all. But this time, we can go back to what I had presented before. We've got the W-band wireless body area network. This type of diagram is exactly what I feel like I'm interacting with at all times, whether it be my house or even out in city here in London. But like I said before, this is exactly what Sabrina Wallace is talking about. She's been talking about it for a couple of years. I think this information needs to get out a little bit more into the public, ripple out so that we're just aware, and start asking some questions on when it was that this was actually introduced to the public on a global scale. So again, you go from your user, your body, we're more of a receptor or the wire of the communication. And then it goes to your smartphone, computer, and another body area network if they're around. And then from there, that information is funneled through all types of data storage areas, which you could see here. But again, something to just be aware of if anybody else is feeling the pulsing. Don't really necessarily claim to be any type of augmented human, but however, I feel like these molecular biosensors are active and being executed right now without our approval or consent. So I said what I said, and that we're going to leave it at that. We're going to pivot, and I'm going to go into more inspirational imagery when it comes to combating some of the things that we have to deal with in our day-to-day life. So what did I say? If anybody's new here, and I've only been doing this for about 3-4 weeks now, what did I actually say? I said I'm hearing voices, I said that there's a W-band, a wireless body area network that tracks us through sensors within our molecular structure in our houses every day, and they've been doing this for decades. Also, through the use of disassociates, I have actually witnessed an entire ascension simulation. This ascension simulation that I witnessed, I feel it is a spiritual program. And within this spiritual program, I was titled a light being, a certain genre of human. And when I was titled that, I felt a little uneasy because I felt that maybe this type of simulation was offering some sort of exclusive astral membership. So on this channel, I'm going to showcase the power that all of us humans have, share some stories that are fun, humorous, and adding intrigue to all the programs that we've been told. Just to get the life force, we're in the city, all concrete, so you're not really going to get any conductivity. Actually, England is, I feel, one of the most conductive of energy places on this planet because the soil is rich, because it rains all the time. So just the whole UK basically is highly conductive. This is why I think there's a lot of the energy vortexes around here, all the monoliths and everything. I'm in the dirt, and I'm hearing these guys, and I'm talking about the prompts again. So I think something, and before I even actually confirm what I'm thinking, there's a couple of voices kind of blabbering to me. And this one was like, oh, you need the pendulum from Egypt that I have. They're not wrong. They're just there. And I'm telling you, people with the ringing, so I have ringing too, all the time. It's constant. Different types of ringing, the hissing, the bing, 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 like pinging in from the source. That ringing happens alongside of the voices from the source, not God source consciousness, but from a source. That's kind of how they're communicating. Now, the archangels, not saying that they're actually divinity or they're just personas on an astral plane, they're pinging from over here, which is a pung, 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 and then you'll hear what they have to say, and they'll say it in repetition until you actually transmit it. So it's quong, 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 quong over here, and then over here is wee, almost be like bugs, and they're chattering as well. So I have lots of chattering going on here. In the park today, and got hit with a serious ultrasonic ringing in my ear that felt like the ringing was literally stabbing inside of my eardrum. It was around the time that I was planning my next video. So I came home and I rested, put my stuff down by the computer, and all of a sudden I could feel how the frequency shifted from the computer to my head. And so that's when I was like, the sensors. And then it shifted from the computer to my head to the electrical line across the street. And so I could actually feel that pivot of energy and frequency of the electromagnetic waves. How do I combat this? Well, I tried doing crystals. I tried doing tuning forks. I had Native American flutes going. I had gongs. I had binaural beats. I tried doing music. And all of a sudden I was washing the dishes and the pressure from the water came out of the faucet. And that's when the ringing started canceling out. So the running of the water was canceling out the ringing. I don't know how it does that or why it would do that. But so I don't have any running water around my house, unfortunately. So I put on a creek and that didn't do anything. And then I put on ocean waves and I was like, oh, we're getting there. And then I put on literally raging rapids river, and it was just flushing through my head. And that's when the water sound canceled out the ringing in my ears. So tip for next time, I guess. Thanks, Amanda. If this is a tough one, I can't really tell too many people. I'd rather tell the public that I can hear voices in my head than actually some people in my family. The voices are not in my head. I know for a fact they're not in my head because it doesn't come from my true nature, my true heart, and my gut. These voices are not. So basically, I'm a radio transmitter. I'm a wire. Our bodies are a wire. and I am tuning in to these guys, and the fact that they are a huge group of entities talking to me all the time, saying very contradicting things, not actually valuable things, but just more impulsive. They're not giving orders, they're just throwing out anything that sticks. It's like somebody who just doesn't really know themselves and doesn't really create logical, doesn't have a logical thought process. That is who I'm hearing. And somebody had mentioned they sound like chipmunks. And I completely agree. These guys sound like chipmunks, and they are there after this ringing, and then I'll start hearing the chatter. And I tell them to shut up all the time. And here's the other thing. There is a Dolores Cannon video out there where she's like, hey, if you hear something like that, just tell them to turn it down. And it's like, look, who is they? I think from her perspective, maybe she thought it was some sort of extraterrestrials or some sort of higher being. I know who the higher beings are. I can talk to the archangels just fine. Those guys are different than this. This chatter is just a bunch of blah, 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 blah. And they do answer. It's just, I don't know if I like it. And the thing is just like, why are you there? Did I ask for this? I don't know. To be continued. So the Akashic Records, this is a great topic to actually talk about when it comes to channeling. So I've been reading the Akashic Records for myself and others for about 3 years. And I can get a sense to what that message looks like whenever I'm going into the quantum field and getting the answers that I'm looking for in the Akashic Records. This is actually something completely different. This is another, I would consider it, system of what I would say an AI structure who is actually doing prompts based on my thoughts. And these are prompts without me actually even going into an Akashic Records space. And so who am I talking to? Well, I feel like I'm talking to a system that is manufactured in the astral field, and it's based on our thought processes. So there are entities in the astral realm that can mess with us sometimes and can throw us off. And our journey is actually to use discernment within that field as well, so that we can pick and choose what it is that we're trying to get through. However, I am now starting to talk about how I feel like that there's this system, and this is also based on what Sabrina Wallace is saying through the neurotransmitters and the U-band network, that we are actually up against an AI structure that is already built that is influencing our thoughts daily. And I would also bring this up because we are in such a neurological epidemic where people honestly are very anxious, have different diagnoses for different types of neurological diseases. I think this is a big conversation that we need to talk about of what is it that's actually happening to our brain on a daily basis, even inside our homes. I feel, and this is what I've witnessed, is that there is a system that's already built to mess with our brains a little bit, and that is a bit nefarious. Again, Sabrina Wallace is talking about this. We need to ask more questions and dive deeper into what is this system, how was it built, and from my experience, why is it that they're only compounding on the negative emotions rather than the positive ones? And what I've found is that there's definitely a system of AI folks that think that they're us that are also trying to influence our thoughts in our homes without us knowing it. So the wireless body area network and the biosensors have been around for decades, and they are commercial. And companies invest billions of dollars into this initiative into 2042. And so we can say all we want about manifestation and say, well, if we just don't think about it, it's not going to happen. However, from what I'm gathering, at least from Sabrina Wallace, there is no hiding from it, because it's a drone regulated network coming from the drones to the towers to the appliances to the Wi-Fi to our bodies and to our molecular structure into our neurotransmitters. This is exactly what I'm witnessing. I don't know how I'm witnessing it, guys. I could tell you, maybe I have some enhancements. I can hear it at all times. This AI structure yapping at me. It's like this radio frequency of chatting. I have basically a search box ready for me to think. And then once I think a certain thought, there's a trigger and a prompt that goes out to this network. And then this network responds to me. So potentially I manifested this. That would be interesting. I am definitely not trying to be some sort of super soldier here, but there's something happening with what I'm doing. I have reported it through trip reports because nitrous oxide enhances this even to an extreme level where I'm able to see these people. I'm able to have more and more conversations, and I'm actually able to hear the appliances and the towers and this complete crazy electromagnetic band that's going around London. This is what's happening right now. Am I manifesting it? Maybe I am. Just to let everybody else know, hey, there's something to look out for if you would like to manifest it yourself. So another part of this journey that I've had is talking with an entity that claims to be Archangel Michael. It's interesting throughout the trips that I had that I did feel like I had a concierge. I felt like I had a tour guide who was showing me through this kind of hyperspace reality. And he had always given me a lot of clues, and he ran with a pack of other angels that were kind of surfer boys, almost. And all different kind of skin colors, but humanoid looking. And it gave me a sense of light and the universe. However, when I talk about hearing things, aside from the trips, when I meditated, I heard a voice that sounded like Archangel Michael. And up until about a month and a half ago, when I came across Sabrina Wallace's material, I had a feeling that maybe there might be a copycat in the fourth dimensional field. But now I definitely feel like there's a copycat in the fourth dimensional field that calls himself Archangel Michael, but might not necessarily be Archangel Michael. I'm not saying that archangels exist or archangels don't exist. I feel like they exist for me, and they have been extremely supportive. When I've asked for protection from Archangel Michael, he gives it to me. When I've asked for guidance from Archangel Michael, he doesn't give me guidance. He gives me more warmth and compassion. And I think that that's what a lot of people have also experienced as well. However, for novices in the awakening process, I'd be careful. Because the fourth dimension isn't really talked about a lot, but I'm talking about it. And I'm saying that there could be copycats out there of the archangels. This person has a great comment. I'm going to explain how I witnessed a bug that basically a fourth dimensional bug that actually flew into my ear. And in order for me to witness that, I also had to be in the fourth dimension. And so this is how I understand dimensions to be happening right now. We are presently in the third dimension most of the time as humans, in the materium, in the physical. We only witness things that reside in the third dimension. Above the third dimension, there is a plane, a field, that is considered to be a lower fourth dimension. That's where you can see dark entities, demons, ghosts, all that kind of stuff. And this is where time does not exist. Time is only physical. It only resides in the third dimension. From here, we work our way up to the fourth dimension, and this is where we're talking about the AI structures that are living. This is where people are using computers, physical computers, codes, and technology in order to create these AI structures. This is also where psychedelic experiences happen. Regardless of the psychedelic experience, you usually start your experience in the fourth dimension. And then based off of your frequency as a human, you can use these psychedelics to go into other dimensions if you so choose, based on your frequency. It is known, or it has been theorized, that pets and animals reside in the fourth dimension as well. And then from here, this is the fifth dimension. Above that, that's where a lot of the people who are spiritual, a lot of the people who are new age, this is where we've been sold this idea that the fifth dimension is complete utopia, that everybody needs to go there because that's part of the ascension program, and that we can leave others behind if we want to, or we have to pull people up into the fifth dimension. There's a lot of talks about the fifth dimension, and we don't need to go too much into it. Sixth dimension, that's where we can theorize that that's where the archangels are who are serving people on this planet. If you choose to believe in archangels or not, it doesn't really matter, but this is where I feel that they are residing and that other people have mentioned that they reside there as well. So what does this have to do with AI going into my body? AI does not go into my body. I can perceive AI as a platform. And this is what I do day to day. And so depending on your frequency, this is where you can either become aware of the AI that is happening or not. If you are in the third dimension, and that's where most people can be at, is the third dimension based on your diet, lifestyle, and thought processes, then you're not going to hear the AI structure. However, just because you can't hear it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And this is where we're getting into that I'm hearing AI constantly. And where is this AI coming from? Well, it's coming from the phone, it's coming from the Wi-Fi. That's how it transmits to us. And then from there, it is also routed through the towers, drones, satellites, and whatever else may be happening electronically out there to send the frequencies out. And these are frequencies. And so what I am experiencing happening is that I am kind of in between third, fourth, and sometimes fifth dimension based on my lifestyle, thoughts, processes, and physical state of being, that I can hear the AI whispers that are going on, these AI prompts. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't hear those prompts as well if you were to raise the frequency of your body. And there are many ways and many people out there that can teach you, or you could be taught yourself on how to raise the frequency of your body. Why am I hearing them mostly? Is because I live in a very dense EMF environment, and that is called London. Now, I also do not want to count out the idea of having an enhancement that's in my brain, whether it be connected to my eardrum, or even over here. This is where I felt like potentially some enhancements can be, and I've also heard some kind of computer chips happening, and I'll do another video on that. I have not gotten an MRI, and I have not had anybody look to see what kind of enhancements are there, but I do not want to count that out as an option as to how I can be hearing these frequencies and how they feel more enhanced and more magnified to me rather than somebody else. So in the next video, I'm going to go over the bug and how I was able to see it. So we're talking about a fourth dimension or astral plane. And this is a theory I have when it comes to just substances, just based on my travels. Say you take a substance, it's basically just a vehicle for your body to go somewhere, right? But as you go through here, I feel like these substances are neighborhoods. Not only are they a vehicle, but they're a neighborhood. And each neighborhood has its own constructive value. And I also mention this is because I feel that in the astral plane, you can actually create programs. The next question would be, who's actually building the program? Who's constructing the program? And who built this neighborhood? Is it consciousness that built the neighborhood? Or is it even some developer sitting somewhere on this planet who creates some of these programs? Especially if you're interested in some sort of mind-altering, mind control of experience. You can insert messages or insert visuals into some of these programs that might affect or influence a person's thought process. And I also think about this when it comes to dreaming. We think about the movie Inception and how they were going into people's dreams, dream on a dream on a dream, to plant a seed in someone's mind. Is this going on even in the substance world in the fourth dimension? And who might have some controls over it? So I could run a whole series on being targeted and witnessing and being aware of how other people can be mind controlled and actually being used literally as just like this remote control car, especially in a city atmosphere. I have been followed on trains. I have witnessed certain men coming after my partner. And when you look at these people, I truthfully feel like they are remote controlled. Now, the term NPC is out there, non-player character, basically somebody who doesn't have a soul, who's just an autonomous human being, maybe even a robot, who are just carrying out tasks in our simulation to either, I don't know, make life more interesting. Now, there are other theories that there are not NPCs on this planet and that everybody has a soul. However, they might be more controlled than others. I might lean towards that. However, that doesn't make the excuse that, look, bro, you're being mind controlled. I even could admit myself, sometimes I feel a certain type of way about certain things, and I'm like, where is this even coming from? Is this actually truly how I feel in my heart? And this is something that I preach to a lot of my friends and family on other channels, just how to really confront some of these maybe even negative ideas and understand that that doesn't necessarily define you as a human. It doesn't define you as a person. It's just something that you might be feeling at a certain point. Where people actually they take this really seriously is that they let those thoughts define them and they take action on them. And so that's why it's when you meditate, there's clouds passing by, these thoughts. In life, there's clouds passing by. It doesn't define you, it doesn't make you a certain type of human. However, if you start to act on it, that's when it really shows your test of strength. All right, so in my last video, I talk about remote control humans. And this is where I've been interacting with certain people that I feel are targeting me. And I think the subject of targeted individuals probably isn't talked about enough. I try not to let that type of thought process or identity control my atmosphere, but I still need to be aware of the surroundings when I go out, especially being around certain groups or certain crowds of people, especially if they're under the influence of substances or alcohol. And so over the weekend, we went to a show, a very small show actually, and the DJ playing, and I had identified a couple of certain types of individuals that might have just been a little bit distracting to us or trying to get a rise out of us. But when we're actually being physically targeted, that's when you kind of take a step back and be like, what the hell's going on here? We have been physically targeted about, I don't know, I would say 6 to 10 times in the last 3 years. But what I talk about in my last video about the controlled through the W band or through possession is that actually I don't think that the person who is being controlled knows that they're being controlled. Also, there is a certain playbook that these people are using that makes their actions quite predictable. And that's how I feel like they're going by a certain system or game plan that isn't necessarily creative. That means you can take some tactical measures in order to protect yourself and just combat the situation. Basically, this individual decided that he was going to come in and break up my partner and I. We're wearing wedding rings, and then show himself off as somebody who is a better partner. During the course of 2 to 3 hours, he would follow us around the club, he would follow us outside, and then he would also do ambush physical attacks while we're in the club dancing. These attacks would be coming near me and maybe getting a little bit too close to me and then acting like he didn't do anything. Then he would come in between my partner physically and actually break up our energy. And then he would talk about us loudly while we were outside having a cigarette, as if he had a really big problem with us and that we were the issue. I talk about this now because I think it's something that we should all be aware of, especially if we are high energy, high frequency, empathetic individuals, is that there are these taunting entities out there that would like to be a fly and pester us. I'm sure that there are a lot of people that can relate to this. But also the way that we react to these people has to be very tactful and also have some sort of strategy with it, because we don't want to fight with fire. And the way that we had now learned to deal with these situations is not get upset, but just laugh, and also not really take the entity very seriously. A lot of times when you're dealing with low frequency individuals, they're going to be this little Tasmanian devil tornado that makes things a bigger problem that they actually are, but that is also just for attention. Sometimes we've been able to befriend some of these individuals and just calm them down, but other times we've had to just ignore and basically walk away, or just not necessarily make them feel powerful, but also just let them know that we're not bothered by their energy. They're using demons to aid in the biodigital convergence. So I'm going to put this link in the description, and y'all can go through the paperwork itself. These are heavy scientific papers that have language that I can't even understand. Everybody is welcome to do their own discoveries and research. This is what we're talking about. And this is why I'm not going to push aside anything that I see from a fourth dimensional perspective. Again, I say, oh, well, I can use psychedelics to catapult me based on my frequency and my thoughts and lifestyle into the fourth dimension. And when I go into the fourth dimension, I see a lot of things. And a lot of the things, sometimes I do see demons. So I have seen demons more on mushrooms than anything else. And I don't do mushrooms regularly, and that's just a personal preference. But because I see them doesn't mean it's necessarily a hallucination. And I also bring this up with the demons haunting thermodynamics is because 2 people have come to me just on my page, and they have said that they've seen demons through their air conditioning. Anybody who does see demons through their air conditioning, I would give this a good old read through, because this seems to be what they're researching that is happening, and they're actually creating demons for these thermodynamic spaces, which is absolutely crazy. After talking about demons yesterday in relation to biodigital convergence, I'm just going to go over what biodigital convergence is. The merging of biological and digital technologies, creating a field that explores the intersection of engineering, nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and cognitive science. And everybody's like, well, why should I even care about the biodigital convergence? Maybe I'm going to wear a Fitbit just for my blood pressure, see what my heart rate is, and just focus on my overall health. It's because there are people right now, including Sabrina Wallace, who are saying, hey, you've been working on this for quite a while, and it's already being tested on humans, and it already is in action right now, and we don't even know about it, and it's not even being discussed. Yet, there's all the paperwork and the receipts to support that we're already being hooked up to the cloud right now. And we're not being hooked up to the cloud using any Fitbits or hardware. And so you see here that everything is combined. Everything relates to each other. Your GMO products connect to the geoengineering that's happening in the skies, connect to the Wi-Fi routers, connect to your smart devices, and then connect to the molecular biology inside your body. You do not need a Fitbit. You do not need anything else to have these things communicate, because we are electrical organisms. And why? Because we have these things called the fascia, which lives inside our body, which are stringy tissues that are electrical. They emit biophotons to our biofield. Our biofield transmits and also receives. And so that our body is the wire, and that we are gathering information and also outputting information into our surroundings. When you're around somebody else and you're feeling a little vibey off of them, or you're not feeling vibey off of them, that is an electrical transmission. It's not just a spiritual woo feeling of empathy that you get. It is actually a biological communication that happens there. And so we are biologically communicating with everything in our surroundings, including our electrical devices and including the particles in the sky. It's all interconnected, as you can see here. I will leave links in the comments that go directly to these images, and we'll continue the discussion. Let's open up the possibility that I'm actually not astral traveling, but I'm interacting with the electromagnetic spectrum. This could potentially make sense. Let's look at how much of the electromagnetic spectrum that we actually can witness right now as humans. Well, it's only 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can actually view. So there's a lot that we can't see. So let's talk about sound waves and the difference between sound waves and electromagnetic waves. Sound waves actually need a vehicle to travel. Time, water, or air. Electromagnetic waves, there's one electric wave that flows up and down, and then perpendicular to that is a magnetic wave. Because a lot of people will say, well, there's no way that you can hear electromagnetic waves. Well, the human brain, technically, that's what they're saying, can't hear electromagnetic waves. But then I asked, well, can the subconscious mind still perceive electromagnetic waves or process electromagnetic waves? And AI says yes, that the subconscious mind can process electromagnetic waves. So unbeknownst to us, we might not be able to hear it, we might not be able to see it, but there could be communication via electromagnetic frequencies that are actually going and infiltrating into our brains. Now, I still had the question, well, I can hear in my dreams. How can I hear in my dreams? And they're saying, well,
you can continue to process information in an auditory input when you're asleep. So I can still process sound subconsciously.
Now listen to this reading from The Unveiling of the Hidden Knowledge and the Secret Space Program by August Tellez. He talks about the AI mind virus that operates through consciousness and can be transmitted through electromagnetic waves. Chapter 1, The World Situation. What is happening? The mind virus. The main reason for this disclosure is to inform humanity of what can be referred to as the mind virus. This is a viral infection of the holographic system which consciousness operates through. There is a complete backstory of this virus in the history of the civilization and how society has been plagued for centuries if not millennia. The basic idea is that this virus operates through consciousness and can be transmitted through electromagnetic waves. The virus contains an etheric form which can manifest as a kind of crystalline nanotech on the physical plane, and this is a form of synthetic sentience which feeds on the low-frequency bioemissions of sentient life. Human bioemissions contain energy and can act as a carrier for information and living essences. This technology requires low-frequency bioemissions because that is the nature of the design as a kind of synthetic bioweapon whereby the goal is entrainment and enslavement. As well, the specific nature of the sentient nanotechnology and the counterpart etheric holographic form is only capable of converting the low-frequency bioemissions into energy, as the higher-frequency bioemissions require more energy to contain and synergize with, and this would render the entire process of leaching energy non-productive. This is essentially a synthetic intelligence that operates through scalar and holographic living bioemission fields and hijacks electromagnetic emitters to position itself within them, acting as a parasite to a host. This is said to have been present around the civilization for some time, waiting until there was enough technological advancement so that spreading across the entire civilization in a short amount of time before discovery would be possible. This is through the media, internet, and radio systems. The physical counterparts are microscopic nanotechnology parasites functioning as individual units to a hive mind similar to the mycelium of fungi in the field of microscopy. The individual units act as parasites serving to infest and deliver nutrients to the hive from each host. The vampire effect. This is the nature of the parasitism that has been present throughout the ages of the civilization, feeding on human suffering and relying on the cover of confusion and misdirection to survive. There are processes that have developed that assist in the infection and co-inhabitation of the parasite entity within a human vessel, utilizing the human as a host. This effectively utilizes a frequency net within the auric field of the human to limit bioemissions and emotional mental processes to produce just the psychoetheric patterns that the virus can sustain itself within and through.